Do you think marketing is more important than the product?
No. A brand is important. Product is king, then the brand, and then the marketing.
Do you think it's going to take all the jobs?
I think that's a misconception. What AI is going to do,
What would you say are the qualities of someone who's going to be very successful?
number one is be humble. Don't be arrogant. Number two is have a passion. If you don't have a passion, you ain't going to have a drive to be successful.
So, Oscar, I'm first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. I'm very excited to be here. Perry Ellis headquarters. It's a huge brand, huge company. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but for anybody who hasn't heard of it or heard of you, my first question, I guess, would be, um, how would you introduce yourself? Like, what would you say you do, and you just explain a little bit about yourself and your company.
Well, my name is Oscar Feldenkreis. I am currently the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of Perry Ellis International. I started working here in late 70s, 78, 79, and worked with my father, who was the founder of the company. Was never given anything, so I had to work in most jobs in this company. Started working out in the warehouse originally, picking orders. From there, I worked in the sample room, receiving all the samples, the packages that came from overseas. And then I love to sell and develop product. I would classify myself as a merchant. And I went overseas for 6 or 8 weeks, traveled to every single country in Southeast Asia. And then from there in 1980, when China opened up, I started learning more about China, went to China, and I taught myself the business because I felt that in order to be competitive and understand the business, or when I was selling something, I had to understand about the product, how it's made, the construction, on and on and on. And that's what I started to do. And then eventually we were predominantly doing private label product for retailers like Kmart
Mhm.
and Walmart, which were our two main customers. And we did a lot of independent product categories. One of the first product that my father started was doing Guayabera, which most people would know it as a Mexican wedding shirt. And 4 pockets had pleats or embroidery. And then from there, after a while, I told my dad that, we need to create a brand, because if we don't have a brand, you ain't going to be able to survive, because
Yeah.
most retailers eventually will be able to do private label on their own. So we found the niche we were in Europe, and we started seeing the evolution of prints coming around, printed shirts and Hawaiian looks and stuff like that, and other types of prints. So we went to Asia and we started printing on rayon fabric. Silk became very affordable. Then from there we started printing on knit shirts, and found a brand called Natural Issue. And we always had a strategy, not a thought, that it's important for us to leverage every channel of distribution. You cannot just sell one channel, because as we've seen in the last 20 years, how many retailers, either department stores or mass retailers, et cetera, have gone out of business or disappeared. I don't think any of you remember the store called Sears, which doesn't exist anymore. Kmart doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. And those stores exited, and as they went out of business, you started seeing more growth out of Walmart. You started seeing more growth out of Target, et cetera. But it left a big, big, big vacuum of market share opportunities. So we always felt that we have to sell every channel of distribution and develop a product or a brand by channel in order to have the buying strength opportunities. Because if I buy just for department stores, which is the smallest channel, you can make more, you're not going to be as competitive as versus just selling one channel versus being able to sell all channels of distribution, which also confirms the sourcing. If you can source product for Walmart, you can source product for any channel.
So that I think was like a good sort of introduction
Is it too
to
long for you or too
no,
short?
no.
Okay.
So why don't we go back to the beginning of your career in this company? You said your father, he founded it. Did you ever feel like, you know, because you grew up around this sort of environment and, it was your father's company, did you always know you'd end up in it, or was there ever a point in your life at the beginning of your career where you thought that you would go off and do something on your own?
Never. I love this business. I worked in retail stores when I was going to high school, when I was in high school, elementary. I used to ride an MTA bus with both of my grandfathers, and we used to go to downtown Miami on Saturday. I used to work in this one store was an apparel, the other one was a shoe store. And then when I can afford a car, I started working in retail stores in the summertime and after school, in high school. And I always had a passion. You have to find a passion. You cannot just because your family has a business doesn't mean that you have to go into it. And trust me, my father had many businesses. I worked with him in the automobile parts business, and I hated it because it's a greasy business, and I hated to get my fingernails all dirty and black, etc., and my hands. So I chose apparel because it's much easy. It's not much easier. It's a much more exciting business because it's all
Yes.
based on product. When
Yeah.
you develop a brake shoe or a transmission, etc., you develop it and, it lasts for, I don't know, 20, 30 years because they don't change transmissions every single week like they do apparel. So we created Natural Issue, and then we started selling print, maybe rayons or knit shirts or silk shirts to everybody. And I got a 1 million unit order from Kmart
Is this before you're CEO?
before I was CEO. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just an account executive at those days. I had graduated from the warehouse to sampling to starting developing and selling products. I went to Kmart, and I showed them printed silk shirts. And they loved it. They gave me a 1 million unit order. I called my father. We were doing $10 million in those days. And he told me, son, I don't have any money to buy $10 million of product to deliver the order. Those days, the banking industry wasn't as regulated as they are today. So we went to a bank. The bank opened up something that's called the back-to-back LC against a purchase order as collateral. We shipped the order, and it was a hit. And we started selling more and more and more. And we took the company public in 1993, doing $56 million. And then from there, we started growing 30%, 40%, 100%. And it just kept on growing and growing and growing. And then in 99, 98, not 98, around 95, I developed a brand called Corporate Gear, which was really the first internet bubble. And everybody in the internet was wearing khakis. That's when khakis were much more popular than they are today. And I felt that developing a brand called Corporate Gear, which I sold it to Sears, they started buying $50 million. So they came to us and said, why don't you license the brand John Henry? So I said, okay. So I went to talk to the people that owned John Henry, which was Perry Ellis as well. They had the license for Perry Ellis, John Henry, they owned Manhattan. And they were, a fairly large size company. We wrote them a letter that we'd like to buy John Henry, and we were a licensee, and I knew that the brand was going to even go further. So I said, we might as well buy the brand, try to buy the brand rather than paying licensing fees. And they laughed at us. They thought, we're some nice Cuban Jews here in South Florida. They came over on a rowboat and probably didn't have the money to do it. And I was playing tennis with Carl Icahn. You know who Carl Icahn is? No, we'll look
No.
him up later.
For
And
anyone who doesn't know, could you just say like some
Carl
brief?
Icahn was
Yeah.
in the 80s, he was probably one of the biggest corporate raiders there was. He was a corporate raider. He owned TWA, or he bought TWA, and he was fought against Texaco. So if you read Masters of the Universe Chapter 1, you'll know who Carl Icahn is. So I started playing a lot of tennis with Carl. And then he's also became an activist later. So he was an activist on Apple. He pushed Tim Cook to buy more of their own stock so that the price of the stock would go up, and many other companies like that as well. And I was playing tennis with Carl, and I told him, Carl, I'd like to buy Perry Ellis, excuse me, so I want to buy John Henry, and these people are not listening to me at Apollo. And he went to see Leon Black at Apollo, and then long story short, he was backing us, and he helped us buy the Perry Ellis brand, and then later Manhattan, and then later John Henry, because Salant was having financial issues. And that's how we own Perry Ellis, John Henry, Manhattan. And then before that, in 96, we bought Original Penguin, Mungsenware. And in 2005, we bought Janssen, which came with the acquisition of the license agreement for Nike swimwear global. Those days, it was only United States or Western Hemisphere. And then today, we're a fairly large company. So we have Nike, which within our portfolio, Callaway Golf. We're very big in sports. So between Nike and golf, it's about 60% of our total revenues.
And so was that company, the Perry Ellis company that you took public on the stock market, a culmination of
It was Supreme originally, and then
okay.
when we bought Perry Ellis, we changed the name from Supreme to Perry Ellis, because Perry Ellis, more people knew who Perry Ellis was at Supreme.
And that company was a culmination of a lot of different like names, like a lot of different brands.
We didn't have that many brands when we went public. We only had
Oh.
really two brands. One was Natural Issue, and the other one was Feldini, which is Feldenkreis. We added an Nini at the end, and we married dress pants under the Feldini name. That's
Italian?
it. Huh?
Italian dress pants?
Italian dress pants, made in Korea. Finest wool around.
How was it working in the company with your dad? Did you enjoy that? Did you learn a lot from him?
Yes, I loved working with my dad. I miss him dearly. He passed away in 2025.
So I'm sorry.
Thank you. And we used to eat lunch every single day, side by side. He would be my first call every morning, every night before I go to bed. And we had a great relationship, and he taught me everything. I dropped out of college going into my third year. And he told me he didn't want me to drop out. He told me he wanted me to continue in college. But I said, at the end of the day, I know what I want to do. I had met my current wife, my wife today that I've been married to for 44 years. And I knew who I wanted to be married to, and I really wanted to go to work full time, have kids, and at an early stage of my life. And so, and it basically shows in life, you have to have a passion for what you do. If you don't have a passion, you're never going to be happy. And I asked Ellen to get married in 1981 and 82. I got married, and 1983 I had my first kid, and then 2 years later I had another one, and another year later I had the other one, and now they're all married, and thank God they're all doing well.
When did this company, would you say, became like huge? Because now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. It's huge. Is there like a specific moment you can remember, maybe the IPO, that it really became like a huge, huge company?
Look, when we did the IPO, we were small. We were only doing $54 million. But, when you're public, you have to show growth. If you don't show growth, it becomes very challenging. People don't have an interest to invest in companies that are not growing. From there, you have to, if you don't have growth, you have to try to figure out how to generate growth. So maybe it's by making acquisitions or buying more brands or licensing more brands. And that's exactly, what we started to do when we had Perry Ellis, we Penguin and, other brands, or maybe take Perry Ellis and do a golf line, or maybe take Perry Ellis and do a tennis line. So you start diversifying the brand. Like, you see Polo, which has many, black label, blue label, green label. They have RLX, etc. So it's a very, very lot of different brands under
Yeah,
one
sure.
master brand.
So you mentioned earlier that in order to fulfill certain orders, you had to take on a lot of debt in the business. Oh, a lot of the time debt is looked at as like a negative thing. Like it's very dangerous. You shouldn't take any loans, or you shouldn't put yourself into debt. What's your view on it when it comes to business? Do you think it's like a trap, or do you think it's something people should use?
I don't think that is a problem unless if you have the fiscal responsibility to generate the cash flow to pay for your debt. But you shouldn't take on too much debt that doesn't allow you to make a profit, because no bank is going to help you if you don't make a profit. You have to be able to make a profit. But at the end of the day, that was the main reason why we went public, because we had nothing else to collateralize or that we can borrow against to be able to grow. And as I said, we went from, I don't know, 54 to 86, 86 to 120. That's heavy duty growth.
Yeah.
Warehousing, you might need a bigger warehouse, you need more people, etc.
So it's not a bad thing if you're just
It's
responsible.
not
Like,
bad as long as you're fiscally responsible.
yeah.
You know how much debt you have, and you know your monthly payments. And if you have the ability, and you have to have good people next to you also. It's not like about, oh well, let's go out and borrow a lot more money than what we can afford, because then you don't have credit, which becomes a problem.
Your sort of um your product category is, it involves, I'm sure maybe your company even owns some department stores. Brick and mortar today is something that is becoming harder and harder to do, and a lot of the new very successful clothing brands that are coming out online are mostly online now. So is brick and mortar something that you would recommend someone who's getting like a new clothing brand to do, or is it obsolete at this point?
Brick and mortar will always exist. People love the experience. People love to go to a mall. People love to go shopping. Um, E-commerce
Yeah.
and native e-commerce brands, they cannot grow at the same level online without having stores. Stores is a necessity. If you don't have stores, it's very difficult, because the cost to bring a customer into your site, it's very expensive. Then you have to deal with all the returns that sites get. Do you go online and buy something and then you return it, or a woman that buys three different sizes to make sure that they fit her right, or she doesn't like the size 4, she likes a size 6, or she'd rather have a size 2? That costs a lot of money. And if you don't watch that, you don't make any money on e-commerce. Very difficult.
Hmm. Do you think there's also something about the in-person experience of it that,
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
And you're seeing that. You're seeing, look today online, the minute that you open up a site, you get a check.
this company, I mean, you mentioned you started working here, and there obviously was a lot smaller, but in like the 70s,
Late
late
70s.
70s or like early 80s, which is, it's almost like 40 years at this point, more than 40 years at this point. Um, Over the years, you've probably seen a lot of clothing brands like come up and die. But this has been around for a long time. So what would you attribute to that success that you've had over time?
It's making sure that the brand stays relevant to the market. And we've seen over the years that many brands, they either want to become younger or older, or they want to go after a different customer, and they lose their way, and you can't make it up. It's very difficult. You see a lot of different companies today that brand companies that are struggling because they don't have new product, they don't change their marketing, or they change their marketing and they go after a different age group, and your generation doesn't even know
Yeah.
who the brand is. So to market to you guys, it's very challenging. You guys buy probably more on TikTok than you go on any other brand. So your world is changing. A lot of brands are not, TikTok is new to them.
Mhm.
It's not like as if they've been doing TikTok for 20 years. We're starting now to go on TikTok, so it's like as if that's the future. And then you have, AI, which is everybody's going on doing searches on AI. Oh, I want to buy a Perry. I need a polo shirt. You're lucky if maybe Perry Ellis comes out in that menu that AI is suggesting. And then how do I lead AI to bring that customer to our, the site that we have? So there's a lot of different ways to attract a customer. You have to have strong brand equity. If you don't, you won't survive.
Do you think marketing is more important than the product?
No. A brand is important. Product is king, then the brand, and then the marketing. You got to make sure that the product is right. And you got to constantly evolve product. Because if you don't, you're gonna only be good for one season.
Yeah, makes sense.
And you look at let's take Tesla. They created a luxury car, EV luxury car. Most General Motors, Ford, all of them, Chrysler, BMW, Mercedes, thought about it, but didn't really pay attention to it. And then when they did pay attention, they started investing billions and billions of dollars. But it wasn't productive. Today, I think one of the two, General Motors or Ford, took a monster write-off on EV because sales are not coming through. So they're not. We thought that every company was gonna be able to come with an EV car, but that didn't materialize. And then you have today the Japanese. You can go to Mexico today and buy a Chinese BYD
Yeah.
for $25,000. I'm sorry, I just got back from Europe. So that's what you're seeing today. And you have to be, you have to be relevant. You have to make sure that you're just as relevant. Look, you guys are going to be able to eventually, and for I don't even know how much, you're going to be able to say, hey, you know what? Instead of going to Italy for the summer, we want to go take a ride on a spaceship to the moon. Don't be shocked if that what I'm telling you is not going to materialize in the next 10 years. It will. Because Blue Origin and SpaceX and all these companies that are creating ways to attract and create an experience for a consumer and the general population has never been seen before. So those companies, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, those guys their minds are like little computers and they're constantly thinking of new ideas.
So you think that's a very important thing, even, especially today, to constantly be evolving what your
Yes,
company does.
yes.
Yeah.
I push my team for product every single day. I think of new ideas. I think of new product. I just got back from Europe. I was there for a month. And luckily, our iPhones have cameras inside, so it's much easier to create product.
So you mentioned like AI and, SpaceX, all these new technologies. What have you seen as the effect of all those technologies in the business landscape, like AI, for example? Do you think it's going to take all the jobs that everyone is saying it's going to take?
Look, I think that's a misconception. What AI is going to do, there might be some redundancy created by AI, where people that are managing a lot of data. They'll be able to simplify the data through AI, but give them, instead of working 3 hours on use in the old-fashioned way of doing the analytics on that data, you'll be able to put that through Gemini or ChatGPT or Anthropic Cloud and be able to use it in a much more easier format that you can read it and really understand it. It gives you the cliff notes, you know? Can you imagine,
Yeah.
what grade are you in?
Senior.
So you're a senior in high school?
Yeah.
So you imagine when you go to college today, you'll be able to take every document, that every book that you have, put it through AI, and it reads it for you, and you get a cliff note right away. We don't have that. You know, they gave us a 500 page book. We had to read it, and you couldn't even ask anybody to read it for you because in those days it didn't exist that.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to change how we operate, how we think, the amount, the data that's going to be available at our fingertips. I just took a trip to Europe. So I went to Rome. I asked Gemini, give me the 5 top Italian restaurants in Rome. And it gave me a list, you know, of 20 restaurants with the price points, expensive this and that, etc. And you pick your restaurants. Eventually, do you need a travel agent? Do you need a concierge? And you know, there are many different jobs that are out there, but you still need somebody who knows how to ask the right questions to Gemini or any AI, because if not, they ask the wrong questions. You're not gonna get the wrong answer.
So you think it's gonna create as just as much jobs as it's going to
Yeah,
take?
it's going to be, you're going to have a lot more data at your fingertips that you had today. So instead of you being a salesperson, I'm going to move you to analyze data.
Another thing that a lot of people use AI for, if you know, like Claude Code, a lot of people are starting, apps, or they're using it to make their website for their brand. A lot of people do clothing brands. Um, what?
You can create a website today in cloud in, I don't know, 3 minutes.
Yeah. So, now that the bar is so much lower to be able to do things like that, instead of it costing thousands of dollars, it costs $20 and it takes 3 minutes. What would you say someone has to do to be able to stand out as a brand?
Content is king. And consumers today are not stupid. People are very smart. Even though we think that consumers are stupid, they're not stupid. And we blend, for example, what we do in marketing, we blend it with AI and we do photo shoots. So you have a combination of both. It doesn't look like sterile, because AI does look sterile. It looks like, oh, the model is standing there like this. Well, I don't know if that's reality or true. Or they give you models that have beards and maybe a customer doesn't like a beard. There's a lot of different ways to use AI. But AI is going to be here for a long time. Will it replace jobs? It will replace jobs and move people around. So do I need, I don't know, 5 people in design as an example? Probably not. Probably do away with 3. Can 2 people go somewhere else to do something that they can use their skill set? Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned college earlier. Did you go to college?
I went to 2 years to college, and on my 3rd year, I got super bored, and I told my mother that I'm banking out of college. I told her, can you imagine how many new pairs of shoes and dresses and bags you're going to be able to buy with all that money you're going to be saving? And of course, she told me yes. I went to my father, who's an ex-lawyer from Cuba. He told me I'm crazy. I got to go to college. I told him, give me a chance. Let me sit next to you. So I sat in his office for about 2 years. I wrote down every single word that he said. And I went from there. That's how I finalized my life. And college is very important, but I think you have to make sure you're taking the courses and you have teachers that make it interesting. Because on top, when you go to a college and it's not interesting, you have a professor that, you basically can fall asleep in the class, becomes, we're not happy. So we try to bail out or look for something else to do during that time frame.
If someone was in a position like you knew what your passion was for a while before you went to college, do you think it's an experience that's still worth it, considering how much it costs these days to go to college?
I think it's worth it. And if you don't want to go to a full scholarship, if you feel you don't need it, I would definitely take some courses. Financing is very important if you're going to go into business. You got to know how to read a balance sheet. You got to know how to read a statement, P&L. You got to know your stuff, because those are essence in life that are so important that if you don't have that knowledge, what contribution can you make?
What's a piece of business advice that you've heard that is repeated a lot to younger people that you think isn't true, or
That isn't true.
that it's bad advice? Yeah, piece of bad advice.
I'd rather do the good advice. I think bad advice are people that are not take a job and they're not properly trained.
Yeah,
And that's something that I see a lot of people that go work at a company and they're very unhappy or they leave. I think that happens because the company that they go work for has a very poor training program. And training is very important because that's the only way you're going to get educated in anything of a business, regardless of what it is. So I think it's imperative. Training is very important in being successful within a company that you go work for.
okay.
And the other thing is, don't think that the grass is greener on the other side. People think, oh my God, look at this. How successful are you versus me? Why are you more successful than me? And people think, well, maybe because he has a podcast, so let me start doing a podcast tomorrow. And it's just as easy if Morris can do it, but that's not reality.
Yeah,
People try to imitate the success of others, which I find that to be wrong, because they're not you're ahead of the game before they even get to your level.
yeah. Now, if you want, you can do the good advice.
Huh?
You could do the good advice also if you.
Good advice is
Yeah,
really being humble.
yeah,
Is very, very important. Arrogancy is probably the worst attribute that anybody can have in business. Anybody that's arrogant doesn't win a battle, doesn't win at all, because people don't want to work for people that are arrogant. I see it within our own company, where we have people that are very arrogant and they don't want to change, and it's tough. Be humble, give back. Big believer in giving back. I think that people that don't give back and they're successful, they that's wrong. I'm a big believer in participating and giving back. You got to get involved, just like you're doing something that you have a passion for. Create a passion. Have a passion to do something, and if that's your passion, then stick to it. It'll be a lot of hard work. If you're only going to work 40 hours a week, you're not going to be better than your competitor, because your competitor is going to work 40. But if you work 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week, you're doing a much better job than the normal. So you got to work hard.
it's something that you hear a lot. Follow your passion, but what if someone's passion isn't necessarily profitable?
I would tell you, hey, Morris, we got to sit down. This business is unprofitable.
Yeah,
And if we don't turn it around, we're going to have to close it. Do you have any ideas? Also, when you talk to your senior level or your boss, create solutions. A lot of people don't understand how to generate a solution. And you get, people, by not creating a solutions, maybe you're not strategic. Maybe you don't even know how to fight yourself out of a paper bag.
yeah,
Have a lot of common sense. Ask questions. Be wise. Don't think you know it all. And don't be scared. One time I flew next to this Japanese guy on a flight to Japan, and I was asking him a lot of questions. And he says to me, you ask a lot of questions. And I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to talk to you. He said, no, that's very good. You're a very wise man. You're smart. So when you have an opportunity to network with somebody or meet new people, always meet new people. Network is very, very important, because you don't know what that person that you're meeting today or tomorrow, if they can help you anywhere in life in the future.
Sort of along with asking a lot of questions, what would you say are the qualities of someone who's going to be very successful?
Number one is be humble. Don't be arrogant.
Yeah.
Number two is have a passion. If you don't have a passion, you ain't going to have a drive to be successful. Sorry to say that. Go flip hamburgers at Burger King or McDonald's. That's what you really should do. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to have some form of heat in your belly that wants to, be successful. And once you are able to be successful, give back, share, help others, become part of a nonprofit organization, give back some of your time, work with them, help them, hospitals. There's so many out there today. So it's important. And you know what? It's the greatest satisfaction in life is to give back. Helping others, giving back is very, very important.
Is that is that sort of part of your religious faith or
Has nothing to do with religion. I would still give back regardless of religion. Now, yes, I'm Jewish. I grew up here, but I thank America. I thank for my schools. They gave me an opportunity to study when I came here from Cuba. My parents had no money. My mother used to work in the cafeteria serving me lunch during school. But we had to do what we had to do, because if not, I couldn't get an education, and I would be, I don't know where I would learn.
yeah.
So you can have a faith, but I also give to hospitals and organizations that are not necessarily tied to any religion or any, if you hook up with an organization and you like it, then give money. And it's not about the dollar amount, it's more about the participation. When you look at organizations, it's not about the dollar amount, it's about how many people are actively giving within the organization. That's extremely important.
You came up in a generation that has a very different philosophy around work than mine.
That is for
Um,
sure.
yeah. Your generation is, work hard, grind, sort of don't complain too much about it. And my generation sort of tends to look for like a not sometimes the easier way out. Maybe I guess you could say they're a little lazy, but it's I guess it's also just more of a looking for a faster, more smarter way of doing something. Um, would you recommend someone now to, work hard, grind, sort of like how people in your generation did, or is that advice sort of outdated because of the pace that technology moves?
Technology creates a lot of value, but working hard, you're still going to have to work hard.
Yeah.
And there have been more millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires that have come to life in the last 10 years that we have never seen in many, many years before or ever before. So the opportunities, and they're some of them are 25, 28, 30, 30, 50, whatever what their age bracket is. But they worked hard. It wasn't like, oh, I created SpaceX or X, whatever, all these things that are out there today. You look at Microsoft. When Steve Ballmer was running Microsoft, the stock was flat. It was between 30 to 35 bucks. Didn't move. Stayed there forever. This guy came in, the current CEO, and he took the company to, I don't know, $400, $500 a share, because he worked hard. His engineers worked hard. They needed to create, they needed to change what people knew Microsoft was for. And he did that. He was very successful. And it's the evolution of how you see life and how you see the product that you want to bring to market.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to work hard. The concept, oh, well, I want to travel. My granddaughter, she just graduated high school. So she's going to go study in Israel for 1 year. Gap year, I think it's called.
Yeah.
I think that's a crack of BS, to be honest with you. And I told her, why are you doing that? You're going to graduate college at the age of 21, and all your friends are going to be way ahead of you doing other things. So it's bringing you back a year. You want to study college? You want to go to Israel, live in Israel? Go live in Israel when you graduate college. Finish what you got to do. I think it's a big mistake when I see that happening today. Well, we're going to go to Israel for a year. Okay. Good luck.
So, part of the reason I started this podcast is because I feel like a lot of the business podcasts that exist give a lot of advice it's very like motivational. Like after you listen to it, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go start a business, whatever it is. But it's not very like practical. Like it's not so actionable. Like I listen to it, I'm excited to do something, but I don't really know what to do. So what's a piece of advice that you could give to someone who's in high school or college, and wants to, be an entrepreneur or start something that they can act on?
Read. I read the Wall Street Journal every morning when I wake up. Read the Wall Street Journal, read a newspaper, get educated, read books, and talk to people. How do you make a difference in life? What do you like to do? Do you know what you like to do besides podcasts?
Yeah, sure. I'm creative. I like to draw a lot. Design. I do like some fashion design. Um, I work with other business, like small businesses, like service businesses. Um, just
But you
buying and
think you
selling
can make
them.
a living from that? Any of those ideas that you have?
I think so.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
then follow your dream. Pick one of them or pick two and see how you do in one or the other. And that's what you got to do.
Do you think that somebody should, pick one thing, lock onto that thing, and focus on it, or is it good to at the beginning have a few different um, ideas of where you want to go and test the waters a bit?
I think it's important to stay focused. I think if you're going to have a lot of balls up in the air, you're not going to be so successful, to be honest with you. I think you'll have a problem because you won't be able to do much.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer, stay focused on what you do. And if he's doing better than you, then figure out how to beat him.
Yeah.
Or do better than him. But just don't go out and say, well, if he's doing better than me, if Akiva's doing better than me, maybe I should go into a different business. I wouldn't do that. Maybe what you should do is if you're in communications, maybe you want to do, I don't know, more AI, more chat, more customer service. There's a lot of different things that could be done, but you have to put your head to it.
Yeah.
And common sense is very important. I interview a lot of people. And some of them, when they're tested, they come out so high. I mean, I'm thinking I'm talking to Einstein in front of me, but they don't have they have zero common sense whatsoever. Let me ask you a question. How much ice is produced in the state of Florida?
Ice.
How much ice is produced in the state of Florida?
How are you measuring it? Like by gallon?
Yeah, by gallon.
Mm.
You have an idea?
Millions a day, probably.
No, that's not the answer. That's not an answer. That's an open answer. There is no answer. But you know why you ask that question? Because you want to see how you will answer that question when you're being interviewed. Do you know how to fight? Do you have common sense when you answer that question? So
Interesting.
you would figure how many houses or how many households are in the United States. In the state of Florida. So Florida has, I don't know, 50 million people as an example living here. Does each one own a refrigerator? And if they do, how many sheets of ice do they put in to make ice cubes? Or do they have an ice cube machine? That's how your mind works. That's how you have to think. That's a business question that they ask you in business school. How much ice is created? There is no answer because nobody knows the answer in reality, but it's how you answer and how you think to answer creatively to make sure that whoever you're answering the question to, you are creating something for them that, oh my God, it's true. It's so real, even though it's bullshit.
Why don't we sort of wrap up now? Um, I have a signature question that we have a signature thing that we do, tradition. The end of the episode, I ask a question from somebody who submitted it online, who's, just starting out. Maybe they're in high school, or maybe they just graduated college or high school and they want to be an entrepreneur and they want the opportunity to ask someone really successful like yourself a piece of advice.
Sure.
So you can answer this question however you want to. Kiva, did you have one?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
So when someone's starting out a business, they want to pursue something. How do they gain where does the confidence come from in the business world? You're introducing yourself to a bunch of people who know way more than you, and you have to develop a sort of confidence that A, stand your ground because this is your business, but B, also welcome other investors or network with other people. I feel like it takes a lot of confidence, especially in my situation. So I was wondering.
Look, confidence is security. So when you are answering a question to somebody, if they see your hands tremble or you see your upper lip like getting all nervous, that's not a problem. But remember one thing, you're the only one that knows the answer. They don't. They're listening to you. When I get speeches out, my father always taught me, you can make mistakes. Just keep going. Don't go back. Don't correct, because they don't want to know what you're saying. They don't read your piece of paper. You're the one that has the pages in front of you. You're the one that memorizes it. Now, how do you have comfort, conviction? That's something that you're going to have to build over time. But you have to make sure that what you are thinking of to do in life is something that has merit as an idea, and is something that if you go ahead and you try to execute, it's an idea or a plan that has been strategically thought of. And trust me, every single day they offer me 100 different brands. They offer me, why don't we do this product? And at the end of the day, I said, well, how many more units can I sell? How much is it a distraction, or is it really going to be something that's going to create more value and more opportunities? I don't know, but I'm careful in what we do.
And then in just like understanding what if I wanted to bring a new investor into a company, I'm obviously less educated than the investor I'm bringing in because that would be someone I want to learn from. Let's say, how do I know or even be confident into bringing a whole stranger into something that I'm passionate about, a business of my own?
First and foremost, you have to convince that investor that you know what you're talking about. Sometimes, as I said in the beginning, it's more about common sense than having a piece of paper telling reading the whole thing out. Gut instincts are very important. Learning how to read somebody if they're bullshitting you or they're telling you the truth is very important also. And you have to be aware that there's a lot of people out there that tell you that they have a great idea, but the great idea is not a really great idea. Somebody came to me today and says, hey, why don't you make a water purifier, whatever, XYZ. I don't think that's a great idea. I think that there's 100 or 1,000 different water purifier businesses out there that don't need another person. I have a friend of mine that today he's consolidated businesses, maybe doing roll-ups, consolidating every manicure place where a woman can get a manicure. Maybe develop a chain for manicures and pedicures. If you go around, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of locations. So there are still a lot of opportunities. This is the greatest country in the world to live in. There's no better country in the world that you can live in that gives you the greatest opportunities. And we have to thank, we're very blessed to be able to live here.
Well, that's sounds like a good stopping point for today. Thank you so much for your time and
Thank you, Morris.
inviting me here to be able to talk to you. I really appreciate it.